Welcome into Fantasy Football today, another off-season edition. Tomorrow, we're going to really get into the weekend games, tell you who to play in DFS, all those fun things. Are we going to do a playoff challenge kind of office league, Jamie?
Yeah, I'll set it up today since I don't do enough for you guys. So sure.
We don't have to. I don't care. I'm just curious.
Yeah, we'll do one.
All right. Welcome, everybody. This is Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. All right, we have a lot of news to get to, including weekend news and hirings and fire. Well, no, why do I keep saying that? There's no hirings right now, just firings. Jamie, how's the off-season treating you?
I'll let you know when it starts. Writing a lot of stuff, so
okay.
It's good not to have the same in-season commitments that are very, very enjoyable, but also very taxing.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get right to it. I finished Lord of the Rings finally. So yesterday
all of them.
Yeah, I started on the day after Thanksgiving, so it took me a month and a half to watch 3 movies, and one of them I watched on a plane. So basically, they had that blocked out, that time blocked off. But yeah, very good, very fun. I recommend it for you. You should get in on it. It's quite popular for a reason. But yeah, the third one was awesome, super fun movie. And
are you gonna
glad I watched it?
Continue with all the other spinoffs?
I don't think so. I was watching the trailer for The Hobbit, and I was like, you know what? I think 11 hours of this was enough. I think I'm good now.
So right before the season started, I started rewatching The Sopranos again, and I got through the first 4 seasons. So I started with season 5 again. It's just so amazing.
Never seen it, on the list.
Oh,
all right, let's get to the news and notes. So Jalen Hurts is in the concussion protocol still. It's going to be either Kenny Pickett or Tanner McKee if Hurts can't play, but they're optimistic about Hurts playing. Zay Flowers, probably not going to play, and he's questionable with that knee injury. They play Saturday. The Eagles play Sunday. The only Monday game is Minnesota at the Rams. But Zay Flowers is questionable. Justice Hill is making progress toward a return. David Montgomery is expected to play next week. They're not playing this week. They have a bye. David Montgomery looks like he'll be back the week after that. And Terrion Arnold, cornerback who got hurt in week 18 for the Lions, he's day-to-day, so he should be good. Mike Tomlin said he's open to using Justin Fields more this week at Baltimore. That game, 8 o'clock on Saturday. And Christian Watson, let's talk about this. Christian Watson tore his ACL. That's just awful. Week 18 torn ACL. So obviously, not going to expect him necessarily for week 1, but just all the injuries that this guy's had. And what do you think the impact is for the Packers passing game?
If they don't add someone, I believe Romeo Doubs and Watson were going into year 4, and Reed is now going into year 3. Wicks is going to year 3. Bull Melton and Heath are guys that they like, not Heath Cummings, but they probably like Heath Cummings also. Look, Dontavian Wicks has seen a spike in production typically when Watson has gone down. So he is somebody to put at the end of your draft, depending on what the recovery is. He's somebody that obviously gets a little bit of a bump in Dynasty, and I think they all kind of do. But as we've seen with this team, they really trended toward a run-based system, and that's impacted all of the receiving options to the point where maybe just one guy being out helps the other guys with the minimal amount of attempts if this is the norm for the Packers moving forward.
Yeah, so we did a mock draft yesterday. That's what we're going to talk about today. And we will look at the best picks, the worst picks, and just kind of lay out the lay of the land on our first mock draft for 2025 with no rookies, by the way, no Ashton Genty or anything like that. But
just speaking of the Packers, you picked Romeo Doubs, congratulated yourself in the draft.
Yeah,
it was a very awkward moment, and I believe Dan Schneier, who was not aware of what you were doing, started basically just talking to himself.
Yeah, it was the chat was kind of dead at that point, so I was like, let's mix things up. So I took Doubs in the 10th round. Jaden Reed went in the 6th round, 12-team, 3-receiver PPR league. I took Doubs in the 10th round, and then I said, nice pick, Adam. And then I responded, yeah, I like the value there, something like that. But just trying to sneak something.
But then Dan just kind of like, I think he's going to retire. And I was like, I don't know what's happening.
Dan's like, I'm going to try something. And he's like, wait, no, I think he's going to retire. Completely ignored my Romeo Doubs joke. And then he drafted Rashad Bateman. Okay, anyway, that's the Packers. The Chargers are signing Ezekiel Elliott to the practice squad, but more importantly, Josh Palmer missed practice. He may not play this week. Quentin Johnston, J.K. Dobbins, and Gus Edwards were limited in practice. There were 2 performances in Week 18, Jamie, that we didn't talk about that really jumped out, and one was Quentin Johnston just having this huge game.
Yeah.
Let me just get the stats up. Quentin Johnston had 13 catches, 186 yards on 14 targets at the Raiders. And, you did have the Josh Palmer injury contributing, but that was huge. And then this one, isn't really going to matter, but I knew Juwan Jennings got ejected in the first half. And then I looked at the stats, and I saw he had 10 targets. And I thought, did I miss it? Did he not get ejected? Did he come back in? Did they over? No, he had 10 targets before getting ejected. It didn't really matter, but unbelievable. 7 catches for 52 yards on 10 targets in less than a half.
I'll start with the Jennings one. I said this going into the week. They noted this on the broadcast when they lost to the Lions. Both Jennings and Joshua Dobbs played together at Tennessee. So there was 2 years where they overlapped in college. He was kind of the go-to guy on the final drive for Dobbs when he took over for Brock Purdy. And he also was 77 yards away from his first 1,000-yard season. So he didn't get it because he fell short with the ejection. But it felt like, okay, my college buddy's going to help me get my first ever 1,000-yard season. So I'm sure that was part of it. In terms of Quentin Johnston, my God, this is a big thing to keep an eye on, because if he has another couple of strong performances in the playoffs, I would hope that instead of maybe spending a lot of money on T. Higgins, they devote that capital draft wise or salary to maybe another tight end. And then you have, your 3 receivers and Quentin Johnston being this type of player. If they bring in another guy, an elite level guy, I think Ladd McConkey's still fine, but I think Quentin Johnston gets crushed. So
yeah, Johnson's had a pretty bad year. That's the thing. I don't want to make too much of Week 18.
But this shows you what he can do.
I guess so, but where was this the first 2 seasons of his career? Basically, obviously his best game. He drops balls. His catch rate, his rates are bad. I don't know. I feel like they would probably be happy to replace him as the number 2 guy. Good number 3 for them, I would think. But you're right. I mean, I have him in a dynasty league. I'm obviously intrigued. I hope this leads to something. I hope they play more than one game. And we'll see. All right. And then, yeah. All right. Well, we'll get back to that some other time. We did not really talk about Tyreek Hill. So let's talk about Tyreek Hill. And he met with Mike McDaniel for about an hour, apparently. They talked about you can't quit on the team. He didn't exactly request a trade, but let's see. Tyreek Hill in the draft that we did yesterday went with the 8th pick of round 2, ahead of Drake London. Yeah. What do you think? Where should he have gone?
Probably round 3, and obviously if you're concerned, round 4. But once we get the rookies in and free agency and all that stuff, it'll be interesting to see what happens if he's still in the Dolphins. And that led to some discussion about when Jalen Waddle went in round 6. Oh my God, I wish I had taken Waddle earlier. A couple people commented on that, and Dave is the one who drafted him. He said, "Oh, this is the last time we'll see Jalen Waddle in round 6." Obviously, if Tyreek Hill is gone, Jalen Waddle's value increases exponentially. If Tyreek Hill stays, then Jalen Waddle will be an interesting draft pick because of where he finished in 2024. I think in terms of Tyreek Hill, my guess would be is that the Dolphins do their due diligence. They're going to try and trade him if they can. If somebody's a taker, then they'll see what they can get for him. If not, he's such a big part of what this offense is. And if they're running back everything, which they are, because they're bringing back Chris Greer, they're bringing back Mike McDaniel, they're most likely bringing back Tua if he's healthy, then why would you, rock the boat to that extent? Again, unless he really wants out and you can get trade capital for it. So this is a story I think that's not done being told. His message after the game, I don't know if you heard the entire thing or you just read
I saw the whole interview. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a lot of rambling, and then it just kind of was like, I'm out. And, he's known to troll on social media, and does a really good job of it. And he's funny. The very next day, he just opened a clothing store in Miami, and he was like, "Hey, come on by," and he's been at his store, so I don't know what's going on there, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if he's gone without a trade.
Good. Could have just been frustration, boiling point. And Jonnu Smith went in the 10th round of the draft we did.
That was a great pick. Yeah.
So that was Dave. All right, more news. Michael Pittman played with a fractured back. And before we get to the firings, Cleveland linebacker Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah had the neck injury that ended his season. Well, it could be a long-term concern. They're hoping that he'll be able to play in 2025. And Christian McCaffrey is nearly fully recovered from his knee injury. His Achilles is okay now, I guess, and he expects to be ready for OTAs. So what really stood out to you? We had, in terms of firings, we had Antonio Pierce of the Raiders. He got fired, but they kept their GM Tom Telesco. Seattle fired. What's that?
For now.
Okay. Seattle fired offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb. They are sort of giving a vote of confidence to Geno Smith. I didn't realize Geno Smith has to be on the roster by, I don't know, March 18th or something like that to get those $6 million in incentives that he earned in week 18. But I think they're going to keep him. And you had the Colts and 49ers firing their defensive coordinators. But offensively, it was really Ryan Grubb. And I guess, we'll get a new coaching staff in Las Vegas. Since the last time we spoke, I don't think I'm missing anything.
No, a lot of interviews, obviously. Guys, making the rounds. But the Pierce one was kind of expected. I think a lot of people sort of looked at that one and said, okay, interim head coaches don't usually have long tenures. And so, the word coming out of Las Vegas was, one of the guys that campaigned for him was Devontae Adams to keep the job. And so Adams not being on the roster, not a lot of veterans there to speak up for Antonio Pierce, apparently. And Tom Brady coming in is going to, change some things as well. So that's why I say Telesco may not be the long-term GM as well.
And what do you think about the Seahawks offense with a new offensive coordinator? It's not like they had a bad offense. They were 18th in points per game, 14th in yards per play. Probably could have been a little bit better in the red zone. I have some fun stuff. So Geno Smith averaged the same amount of yards per attempt as Joe Burrow. That's wild. Burrow, though, threw 74 more passes than Geno Smith. And then in the red zone, Geno Smith overall was 4th in pass attempts, but he was 20th in red zone pass attempts and like 18th in green zone pass, 17th in green zone pass attempts. So he just didn't throw where it mattered. And then like just for a fun Joe Burrow stat, Joe Burrow had 71 pass attempts inside the 10-yard line. 71. No other player had more than 49. That's how you get a high touchdown rate. And so he had 71. And remember, these guys, like both top 4 in pass attempts overall, but Joe Burrow, 71 pass attempts in the green zone. Geno Smith, 26. But yeah, anyway, your thoughts on like JSN, DK Metcalf, the run game, things they want to get the run game established a little bit more. What do you think?
We got to see who it is. Clearly Ryan Grubb was great for JSN, and we saw the breakout season that he had in year 2. Now going into year 3, could he be even better? My guess is Tyler Lockett is done if, you don't consider him done already, but, who do they add as a third receiver? He's going to be 33 years old. Does the new offensive coordinator like the tight end as more of a weapon? Because I still think Noah Fant can do something in this league. He just hasn't gotten the opportunities. But look, the offensive line, when they started to get healthy is when you started to see those big games from Zach Charbonnet. That was kind of when Ken Walker got hurt. And then they fixed the center position after Connor Williams, I believe, he retired. So fixing the offensive line is going to be huge. Bringing back Geno in that decision is obviously going to be huge. If they, hit the reset button on that, then that changes some things. But I'm still going to be, excited to draft JSN. And Metcalf, I think, will end up being a good value pick, which I thought he was in our draft as well.
So Smith and Jigba went in the third round? Yeah. Yep. And no, third pick of the 4th round.
Yes, I'm sorry. So I'll just when we get to it, I had the last pick of round 1. I started with 3 receivers essentially, and I thought about taking JSN as a 4th, which we play flex. So I was, considering going not necessarily 0 RB, but for the most part that route.
Oh, but you did take Ken Walker ahead of JSN.
Yeah, so I took a hero RB approach as opposed to 0 RB.
Okay, and Metcalf I took in the 6th round, 9th pick of the 6th round. He went in between. Like, I actually liked my Metcalf pick. It was Jaden Reed, DJ Moore, Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, Romo Dunze.
Yeah, it's great value.
Yeah. All right.
You wonder how hurt he was at the end of the season.
Yeah, and even if he wasn't, I just feel like he'll be better. I kind of feel like he's like a Devontae Smith kind of player at worst. He's a 2-3 at worst, probably like a wide receiver 20 or so. Okay. Let's we're gonna take a break. I do have a question from the chat from Dan. What is your hot take on the best Lord of the Rings movie? So I'm gonna say the third one was the worst. The third one had amazing battle, amazing, but just very long. They were all long, but this one just felt a little long. So good movie, really good, but the worst. I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Dave, give me a thumbs up if you're ready to come on. I don't think Dave's ready to come on. Oh, he's ready. Okay. Hey, Dave.
What's up, guys?
How would you rank
Lord of the Rings? My son is starting to watch those movies now.
How would you rank them?
I don't remember the order of how much I love them from movie to movie. I just know that I really like the whole series, except for the very end. It felt like they put 7 endings on.
Right. They just kept,
it just kept going on and on and on.
Yeah, but good. All right, so my answer is 1, 2, 3. My other answer is sign up for BetMGM. If you haven't done that yet, use the bonus code FANTASY, and you're going to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Just download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10, place your first wager on any game, and you're going to receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. More from Dave after this on FFT. Okay, and welcome back. So yeah, Saturday's a big day on CBS. We got both games. Well, I thought we did anyway. Now I'm seeing that one's on Prime.
No, one's on Prime.
Okay, well, we have the Chargers-Texans game. We also have the Denver-Buffalo game, so that's cool. Chargers-Texans on Saturday, Steelers-Ravens on Saturday night, Denver-Buffalo, Green Bay-Philadelphia, Washington-Tampa Bay on Sunday, and Minnesota at the Rams on Monday night. All right, Dave, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Let's talk about the mock draft that we did yesterday. And so it was 12 teams, 3 receivers and a flex, full PPR, no DSTs, no kickers. And we went how many rounds? 14 rounds. So I had the 4th pick. Heath had the 1st pick. I had the 4th pick. Dave 10th, Jamie 12th. What were your overall impressions, Jamie, of the draft in terms of, I don't know, position scarcity or strategies you might want to employ? How does the draft board look to you when we did this on January 7th, 2025?
I mean, so much is going to change clearly. The first round was interesting. We'll get into that, obviously, how where a couple of those running backs went in round 1. The way that the quarterbacks were drafted, I think, is still telling of, people either going in early or waiting on, the position and some of the values that we saw at the back end of the draft, of where guys like Kyler Murray and Sam Darnold and Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Sam, those kind of guys went. Really, it's very similar to how the drafts went in August, to be honest with you. It was like the heavy emphasis on receivers early, kind of picking your spots with the running backs. And then when I think people started getting a little bit running back needy, right around round 7 and 8, you saw people, I think, getting some good, value picks, depending on how some of these guys, bounce back after disappointing seasons.
And how did you feel about the draft, Dave? What stood out to you?
I think that first of all, I don't think this is going to be anywhere close to indicative of how drafts are going to be come August, because, I mean, hell, free agency hasn't happened yet. The draft hasn't happened yet. But let's just say that I think there is going to be just an enormous, larger than ever glut of wide receivers that we are going to view as anywhere from like middle of the pack number 2s to low end number 3s. And like Heath always talks about how close players are in his projections, and they're like a tenth of a point away from each other. Like, that's how it's going to be. Like, we're going to really split some hairs trying to figure out which receivers we really like better than other receivers. Once you get to receiver 18, 20, they all kind of look the same. And I felt like that was even the case now in this draft before any rookies were involved. And so what that when I saw that before the draft, that made me really want to prioritize getting as many of the big time wide receivers as I could. And then just kind of like load up on running backs. And I guess you could say I did a variation of hero RB, taking one running back with my first 4 picks, 2 running backs with my first like 6, 7 picks. I don't remember exactly what it was. And then just loading up with a bunch of other running backs down the stretch and not really even giving a damn about wide receiver much. And just hoping that with all these running backs that I pick up, I'm holding it like, I don't know what I'm holding, like a giant jar of peanut butter. But I'm hoping that there's at least a couple of good running backs in that jar of peanut butter that I drafted.
Well, you say didn't give a damn about wide receiver. You meant in the later parts of the draft.
Right. Because if I'm going to spend early draft capital on wide receivers, I don't really intend on benching those guys, and I'll cross my fingers that they stay healthy. Easy for me to say. One of my guys was Puka Nacua. I think I took Puka in round 1.
Yeah.
So he certainly did not last the season. He got hurt in week 1 and all that stuff. So yeah, that's obviously part of the risk of being like chasing wide receivers early on and then not really trying to back it up with quality depth along the way. But this is a 3 receiver, 1 flex league, as are all the leagues that Jamie prefers for us to mock. And so getting 4 good wide receivers with my first, I don't know how many picks it was, 5 picks, something like that. Yeah, I think I can withstand 1 injury and still find another wide receiver either in the draft late or off free agency to help me fill that spot.
Well, Jamie and I definitely went hero RB. Jamie took his first running back at 37th overall, first pick of round 4, and not another running back until round 8. I took a running back in the 3rd round, Chase Brown, so that would be 28th overall, and not another running back until round 7. One of the things that really jumped out to me, well, first of all, a little surprised that there were only 10 running backs taken in the first 2 rounds because, a few years ago, that was usually like 14, 15, I think. And then the last couple years, it's been more like 11. So we took 10 in the first round, but then we had a run of 3 running backs in the first 4 picks of round 3. So that's 14 running backs in the first 28 picks. And it was a really good year for running backs. So I'm not surprised. Now, tight ends. I think that's something that jumped out to me is that I feel like I should have taken Bowers or McBride in the 2nd round. I took Drake London instead, and Bowers was the next pick. And I thought, that probably would have been a better pick. Kind of feels to me, guys, like you can get a big edge on the competition with Bowers or McBride. I feel like when I did my top 25, Jamie had us do a top 25. I feel like they were kind of early round 2 guys for me, and I didn't take them even late in round 2. So probably should have done that. But, you don't have to always draft based on your rankings. Your thoughts on tight end, Jamie?
I thought it was great value for both those guys, like you said. And I was kind of thrilled to get George Kittle in round 6. And I think Dave's pick of Jonnu Smith in round 10, those were the kind of the 4 that stood out to me just based on where they were selected. Mark Andrews also round 7 is pretty good too. So when you're getting one of these, and clearly we got to see what happens with Kelsey. So he's also not bad value in round 7. You're taking a chance on what he still could be. Yeah, it's as we've seen, whenever you get one of these guys that could be difference makers, it really sets your team apart. And so you start to look at, in round 2, like Mike Evans went too soon for me. Derrick Henry a little bit too soon. Tyreek Hill way too soon. I would have taken Bowers over all those guys.
All right. So Bowers went with the 10th pick of round 2, and Trey McBride went with the last pick of round 2. So,
hey, Adam, what do you think you were saying about Laporta and Kelsey and the other tight ends that were quick to go off the board? Like, I wish we had last year's first PPR mock around, because I wonder if you said the exact same thing about those tight ends.
So I was out on Laporta, but totally in on Kelsey until right before the draft. I kind of changed my mind on Kelsey. Originally, I think this time of year I had Kelsey as maybe a first or second.
Oh, you had it early August as a first round pick.
Yeah, or maybe early second, but I'll take your word for it. I thankfully changed my mind on that, but I feel more confident in Bowers and McBride than I did about Laporta a year, this time of year. Like, they just had better years. Laporta was very touchdown dependent, not entirely, But I love the catches, the yards. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I feel like Bowers many more catches than Laporta. Obviously set a rookie record.
Yeah, right.
More yard, less reliant on.
He has the tight end record, I believe, already no, he didn't. Did he catch Ertz in yards? He's pretty close, and he was certainly the most receiving yards for a rookie tight end ever. And he set the record for most receptions from any rookie.
Yeah, they had 111, 112 catches, Bowers and McBride. Last year, Laporta had 86 for 889 yards. So I feel better about that. Do you guys feel better compared to last year about McBride and Bowers than you do about Laporta? And
McBride is kind of the same player that he was to close last season. I mean, you go from week 6 on when they got rid of Zach Ertz, like he was just an absolute monster. The thing that didn't change was the touchdowns. He had 3 touchdowns in the 2023 campaign. He had 3 total touchdowns in 2024. One of those was rushing. So that's the biggest thing that he has to overcome. But yes, he's going to be a PPR monster. He's going to be in the conversation for most receptions at the position. The uncertainty with Bowers is what do they do at receiver, because they're going to have to add somebody else. And then what's the quarterback and who's the coach? So I don't think anybody taking that job is going to say we're not going to feature him, but there is a potential change coming. And obviously Bowers really took off when Devontae Adams was released or traded, excuse me. And you saw what the potential is. Our colleague Pete Prisco has been doing this a long time. He said he's the best receiving tight end in the NFL right now, and that's pretty telling that he's got that much upside. And we kind of knew that he had that potential going into the draft. He fulfilled it leaps and bounds, so there's a lot to love about his upside, but there could be, let's say they sign T Higgins and they go out and they don't fix the quarterback position to the expectations that we have for it, so crappy quarterback with another guy commanding targets, then he might get overdrafted a little bit. Still going to be a top 5 tight end, but might get overdrafted a little bit. I just think the upside is worth taking a chance on in round 2. And I shouldn't have glossed over your pick of Sam Laporta in round 4, because he could still be an absolute monster, as we saw. He closed the season looking like that guy that we saw as a rookie.
Yeah, I took him at the 10th pick of round 4, or the 9th pick of round 4, pardon me. And yeah, I like the pick. I didn't love the pick, but good enough. He's a guy, like, he's not going to have the catches of the yards, but he is going to score touchdowns and be a solid tight end. That might be my worst pick. That one could be bad.
I kind of went through just, in writing the recap for this, some of the values that I liked. I only got through the first 6 rounds, but the values that I like and the values I didn't like. And Laporta was borderline on the don't really love it.
Yeah.
Comparatively to what you started your team with.
All right, so why don't we just go through the first few rounds and see what it looked like here. First round was Chase, Barkley, Bijan, Jefferson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's your top 6. Remember, this is 3 receivers, full PPR. Chase, Barkley, Bijan, Jefferson, Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Is Gibbs overdrafted there, considering he is so much worse? Still very good, but not even, should not be a top 5 pick based on his points per game with David Montgomery.
He either should be picked number 1 overall because David Montgomery is no longer on the Lions and everything's going to fall in Jahmyr Gibbs' breadbasket, or he should be picked a few spots later because Montgomery will be back in Detroit and they'll be splitting like they did each of the past 2 seasons. He's still awesome. You should still pencil him in for, 17, 18 PPR points per game. I think he was averaging around 18 with Montgomery until Montgomery got hurt. And so if that's the case, he's no question a first-round pick and probably worth starting to eyeball once you get to 6th overall, which is 1 spot ahead of where he actually went in this draft. There's just some other players, especially in a full PPR format, and especially with 3 receivers, guys that have 20 PPR point per game potential that I'd take ahead of him. It's Puka, it's Neighbors. Those are the types of guys. And then this is what I'm talking about with splitting hairs, trying to figure out, these guys are all great. I'd love to have them all on my team. Well, how do you kind of set an order on those guys? That's one of the things I'm going to look for, is who's got the best chance to consistently deliver 20 plus PPR points per game. And I think the receivers, just by nature, compared to a running back who's still going to lose some work to another guy, just make more sense going ahead of Gibbs.
It's probably just, how you want to start your team, because he's the next running back that should come off the board.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to go running back with your first pick, this is the spot where you're going to start to see him. So it's, he's a top 7 overall pick for me. he would be 7th, but he's the third running back.
All right. So then after that top 6 of Chase, Barkley, Bijan, Jefferson, Gibbs, St. Brown, it's McCaffrey 7, Achane 8, Lamb, Nakua, Bucky Irving sneaking into the first round. And then Jamie had the 12th pick. By the way, Dave took Nakua at 10. Then Bucky Irving. Then Jamie had the 12th pick. He went with Malik Neighbors and Nico Collins. So he goes wide receiver. Mike Evans is the next pick. And then Brian Thomas Jr. So what do we think about Team 11 there?
He was so distraught after the draft. This is one of our CBS Sports HQ, a producer, Jamie, production staff member, Austin. He was really like down about it when I ran into him later that day. He was like, I took $2. I really shouldn't have done that, should I? And I said, it can work out. And there were plenty of games where Bucky broke out and Mike Evans had some big games too. But I passed on Kyron Williams after taking Puka in round 1, specifically because I didn't want to have 2 guys on the same team with my first 2 picks. I even like the clock's ticking down in the draft room, and I went to just double check how often did those 2 guys, Nakua and Kyron Williams, each get over 15 PPR points in the same game. It was 4 games out of like 11 that they played together. It might have been a little bit fewer than 11, but I stayed away from it, and I didn't want to double up on the Rams, knowing that that's kind of it's going to be rare when both of those guys go off. And so that's why I didn't do what Austin did by taking Mike Evans. He should not have taken Evans, because Evans, early round 2, it's just too soon for him. But it also, guy on the same team as Bucky Irving, I would have rather had literally any other wide receiver, except maybe Tyreek Hill for now in that spot. So Brian Thomas Jr., A.J. Brown, Drake London, yeah, they should all be ahead of Mike Evans.
All right, so after Mike Evans was Brian Thomas Jr., I'm going to say the pick, and you tell me if these were good picks in round 2. Brian Thomas Jr.
Amazing, phenomenal pick. Whoever made that pick is like one of the smartest, most handsome men on the planet.
Very handsome. That's Dave's pick.
I was really torn because to have Neighbors, Collins, and Thomas all staring me in the face in the draft room, I was like, oh, I'm gonna make the wrong choice here, but I went with the 2 I had the highest rank.
Derrick Henry, 4th pick of round 2.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's funny. I don't think any of us want to do it, right? Like we're all just.
He might have been the pick. Like if Austin had taken BTJ instead of Evans, I might have taken Henry there. I might, maybe.
Well, what he should have done was taken one of those receivers instead of Irving.
No, because then you would have taken Irving.
I would not have taken Irving.
Okay. I wonder if he took Irving because he figured, well, a receiver that I really like is going to fall back to me.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with it. I just wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have taken Irving in the first round.
Okay, after Henry, A.J. Brown.
Solid pick.
Yep.
James Cook.
Fine.
If I'm going to be totally critical, I kind of think he should go a little bit later in round 2. But if you really like James Cook, this is totally fine to take him in the middle of round 2.
Jonathan Taylor.
Fine.
Same thing as Cook. Should be late round 2, maybe even early round 3. Just doesn't catch passes.
Tyreek Hill.
Too soon.
If he ends up in a situation where he's happy and the quarterback is going to target him 10 times per game, then this is too late. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know if he's leaving Miami.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know if he's leaving Miami either. But Miami could always try and retailor their offense to appease Tyreek Hill, which probably will work out for them if they do.
Drake London.
Horrible pick. Whoever made this pick is one of the dumbest, ugliest men walking the face of the earth.
You and Dan were fighting over this, and it's funny because Dave, you said you wouldn't even take him in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, I'm walking that one back.
Okay.
Well, look, I don't want to make too much of Week 18. Week 18 was amazing for Drake London. He caught 2 touchdowns, but he faced the Panthers, and he did it without Darnell Mooney. But I just feel like London was something like wide receiver 15 per game, and I just feel like his connection with Penix will be better than his connection with Cousins. Seems like they've started something there. So I went with London. I originally didn't even have him as a top 12 wide receiver. And then I drafted him. I said, Jamie, I got to rewrite my top 12 wide
Yeah,
receivers.
right.
Yeah.
Like you and I were on this line of thinking of, well, maybe Drake London's good, but not great. And something, especially in full PPR, maybe he can be pretty great.
I still feel that way. I don't think he's going to ever be Chase, Jefferson, Tyreek. Like, I don't think he's going to be CeeDee Lamb, but just target volume, end zone targets. I think he can definitely be a second round guy. All right. Brock Bowers, we like. Trey McBride, we like as the last pick of round 2. Right in between those, Breece Hall.
It's fine.
Yep, this is the range where I'm thinking for Cook and Jonathan Taylor anyway, and Breece absolutely belongs in this range, if not ahead of those guys.
Before we go to break and talk about some other picks, I just wanted to say the one pick that really stands out in this draft is A.J. Brown with the 5th pick of round 2. How much has really changed for A.J. Brown? Why shouldn't he still be a round 1 pick?
Oh, he's definitely in the conversation. When we talked about the top 12 overall, for me, it's that group of wide receivers after Puka and St. Brown, where it's Neighbors and Nico and Thomas and AJ Brown and CeeDee Lamb, and AJ Brown's right there. So I would have taken him over Evans. I would take him over Derrick Henry. I would take him over Bucky Irving, for example. So if you have the belief that he's safer than the second year guys now, than Neighbors and Thomas, then you absolutely should take him. If you feel like he's safer than CeeDee Lamb, he should absolutely be in that range. So yeah, he's definitely a first round caliber player, but I would probably put him early second round.
7.5 targets per game this year.
Yeah.
When you compare that to other wide receivers that are taken ahead of him and even behind him, that seems a little light. Seems a little low. And so what I would say what's changed is that other receivers have evolved into high volume pass catchers, and those guys are going to be favored over A.J. Brown, who's awesome, but 8 targets per game max.
Yeah. Now, that is what happened. I mean, Jalen Hurts just stopped throwing after their bye. Remember, I talked about it all the time, and it certainly hurt A.J. Brown.
And how much, he battled the knee injury early in the season, then got a little bit dinged up again throughout the middle of the year. Was he 100% healthy?
Okay, let's take a break, and we'll go through a couple more rounds and go through our teams. And by the way, I should have mentioned this earlier. If you want to see the draft, as soon as the story is published, I'll put a link in the episode description. But also, you can go to youtube.com/fantasyfootball today and just watch this live stream. And throughout our discussion, we have the draft board up. youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. Oh, please vote. Sportspodcastgroup.com. We have less than a week left. Please, sportspodcastgroup.com. Click vote now. Best fantasy betting and gaming category. Vote for Fantasy Football today. Tell your friends. We'll be right back on FFT. Okay, let's go to round 3. Same drill here. Rounds 3 and 4, you just tell me, are these good picks? Kyron Williams.
Excellent.
Great pick.
Lamar Jackson.
I mean, it's the range the quarterbacks are going to go, I think. So, yes, it's fine.
A round 3 pick on Lamar Jackson is totally reasonable.
Josh Jacobs.
Steal.
Yep.
That's who I was hoping to get, but he did not get to me. One pick later, I took Chase Brown.
I like it a lot right now.
Yeah, he's got first-round potential. To see what the situation is. He obviously played that well. Jaden Daniels as QB2.
If you're going to take Lamar in round 3, this is pretty much the same range that Jaden Daniels is going to go in.
Should not be the second quarterback drafted and was too soon.
I agree with that as well.
Now, was he too soon, as in where he went in the draft, or too soon because he was QB2?
Right.
Too soon because he was QB2, and I would probably see him. I'd prefer to see him in round 4.
Right. Like Josh Allen should absolutely go ahead of Jaden Daniels. And this is where, so what? You could say that Josh Allen should have gone here and Jaden Daniels could have gone anywhere from like 1 to 10 picks later. He wouldn't bat an eyelash.
All right. So that's Jaden Daniels going with the 5th pick of round 3. Josh Allen went about a round later. Garrett Wilson.
A little too soon, but this is where he should start to compete.
I agree, especially if wholesale changes across the Jets impact both Rodgers and Devontae Adams. Well, G-Dub is back to being the number 1 wideout there. Another guy with double-digit targets per game.
Okay, how about Terry McLaurin next?
Solid,
if not a tad too soon. It's going to be tough for him to replicate last year.
Here's an interesting one. Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah, I felt like this was too soon.
I think it's certainly the right spot in terms of the running backs who went ahead of him. Like he's behind that group of Kyron and Jacobs and Brown. I like him better than Kamara and Dobbins and Walker. So I have no problem with this.
I
Higgins.
think he's going to be close to that group, but I wonder if he'll be the guy that we keep pushing down as other running backs start to stand out.
T. Higgins.
As of now, excellent value.
Agreed.
Alvin Kamara.
What a pick. Phenomenal.
Too soon.
Whoever made that Alvin Kamara pick, like just a charitable human being, modest as well. And yes, probably a little bit too soon. I took him, obviously, and I didn't want to miss out on having one quality running back. I'm looking at the draft board. Austin took one running back with his first 2 picks. Jamie took 0. So I thought for sure that Jamie would take a running back with one of his next 2 picks. So I just took the guy that I thought was best available. And I thought that was Kamara, who had a good year in PPR without scoring a lot of touchdowns.
It's very funny. This is the part of the draft last year where we were saying you got these 3 running backs, Kamara, Ken Walker, and Joe Mixon.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still 1 year later, or 4 months later, they're still available at this point in the draft. This is what, 36?
Well, Kamara's ADP was round 5.
Yeah, so he's 34th. Yeah, but Kamara, I think, was moving up a little bit. But all of them were there. Kamara's the first to go. So he goes 3.10. J.K. Dobbins is the next pick. I didn't like this one.
It's very polarizing. I mean, look, if he comes back as the lead guy, clearly you saw the upside. But it feels like they're going to add somebody else. He's also a free agent, so we'll see what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And Rashee Rice to Jamie. That's an interesting one. Rashee Rice.
Oh, I was just,
I liked it.
Please let him fall. Please let him fall. Please let him fall. Like, he's a round 2 pick to me.
Definitely thought about taking him instead of Kamara. If there were a lot of running backs that I liked when I was up in round 3, Rice would have been my pick.
Yeah, see, that's the strategy I like to avoid. Like, I'm taking the best player. You still have to, they're still starters.
So it was an LCL injury and a hamstring injury. I don't know. I think about Tony Pollard 2 years ago. I think about Tank Dell this year. These are serious injuries, these guys. I think about Chris Godwin. I don't know how this injury compares, but I do get concerned.
Godwin just dislocated his ankle. That wasn't a ligament.
No, I'm sorry. The torn ACL from Godwin a few years ago.
Oh, in 21. Yeah, sure.
Right. Like none of these guys were like, oh, yeah, get these injured guys. And they all disappointed. But those are the only 3 that come to mind. But obviously, that's what we got to think about with Rashee.
Right, I mean, Jamie, you tell us. How much were you thinking about that injury when you took Rice?
I mean, it's baked into where he's falling. I mean, if he was healthy, this is a guy that averaged 21 PPR points per game in his first 3 games that he was healthy and was coming off an amazing rookie season. So if he's healthy, and I'm sure the Chiefs are hoping that he's healthy. I mean, they clearly have developed Xavier Worthy with what he's done the last 3 weeks. And we'll see what they do with the rest of their receiving core, whether, bringing back Marquise Brown or Hopkins or clearly Travis Kelce. And we see a complete difference in this offense. I mean, Mahomes looks like Mahomes again because they got speed. And, Rashee Rice is a big part of that, so having him back, I still think he's got the most upside of that receiving core. And I was thrilled to make him my number 3 receiver on this team.
How far behind, if at all, is he from Nico Collins? If he's totally back, no restrictions, looks like the same old guy.
So I would say if we find out that he's 100% training camp, no issues.
Right. Best case scenario.
Looking at the draft board, so he's behind Neighbors, he's behind Nico Collins, he's behind Brian Thomas Jr., he's behind A.J. Brown, and there's Rashee Rice.
I think my only issue is if he's 100% back to full health, full go in training camp, it doesn't actually mean he's 100%. That's the trick that's been played on us, where these guys, they are fully healthy, but they're not who they were.
Okay, so it's certainly a fair question to ask. Is he going to be back to the form that he had before he got hurt? But I think just in terms of the guys that you brought up, Godwin was an ACL, so a little bit different.
I have info on his injury if you want it here. I'm just reading now. So no structural damage to the ACL. It was actually an LCL surgery. It doesn't seem as bad. Go ahead.
Well, in terms of, just comparing it. So Godwin is probably comparable if you're talking about just injury risk. Uh, Tank Dell is a different type of player, and Tony Pollard's a different position. So the comment that you just put up is probably a little bit more concerning, I think, than the injury recovery, which is, could he still get suspended? Well, he hasn't had the court case yet, as far as I know. So I don't think the NFL, if they were going to suspend him, will probably wait until there is some legal ramifications, as opposed to just conduct detrimental to the league.
Okay. All right. So that's Rashee Rice. Last pick of round 3. We'll go quickly on round 4 here. Ken Walker to Jamie.
I was thrilled to have it. Yeah.
Yeah. I felt like it was a little too soon.
Yeah, I don't know.
Probably the way that Jamie feels about Kamara is how I feel about Walker.
Yeah. Like, why didn't you guys take Mixon? Because I had just forgotten. I missed Mixon. This happens in these drafts. So we don't have updated rankings or anything. We're using last year's draft rankings. So I don't know why I missed Mixon in my 4th round pick, but I definitely would have taken him ahead of J.K. Dobbins and Ken Walker.
Yeah. Again, I'm just, I guess the ageist in me is still going to be there, but he'll be 29 now, and it certainly did not finish the season playing the way that he was earlier in the year. And how much of that is a byproduct of father time catching up to him and the concerns that we had early in the year? How much of it was the offense just falling apart? Do they add somebody else? Yeah, I'm most likely out on Mixon.
So if you were looking at a younger running back, what made you go with Walker over somebody like Pacheco? And it could be just as simple as the receptions. I don't know. But I think those two will get drafted near each other. I wonder if the offseason is kind of Tyrone Tracy, how far apart will he be from them? Definitely behind them, Tracy, but kind of curious why you didn't want to go in that direction instead of going with Walker.
Walker, when healthy, was a superstar. And at the beginning of the season, he was an absolute monster. And I think when the offensive line started to fall apart, which is probably why Ryan Grubb is not, still employed, I still think he has that potential. So I like the situation for him. I'm still, counting on him to be the featured guy there. Despite what Charbonnet did at the end of the season, the minute that Walker came back, it was his job, and he was the featured guy. So I still think he has the upside that I liked for him going into last year as a breakout candidate and a top 10 running back, a top 12 running back. Nothing to me really has changed dramatically for him. He's not at an age range where I'm worried. I still think if they get that offensive line right, he's going to be a star.
I'm worried that Charbonnet has shown enough now to where they could split them even more than they have previously. And I mean, everything's up in the air now because they're going to replace offensive coordinators again. 2nd year in a row that they're doing it. We don't know how the new OC is going to feel about these guys. But I almost wonder if they're going to be a little nervous about putting too much on Ken Walker's plate after he got off to a great start and then struggled, maybe because of workload, maybe because of other things. Could be the offensive line. But Charbonnet definitely showed out when given the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm kind of over Ken Walker right now. I mean, you asked, could they bring someone in Houston? I mean, they've already got someone in Seattle that, like Dave said, maybe earns a bigger role. I do think the offensive line is a key there, right? Like, just we talked about the Seahawks a lot on Beyond the Box Score, and I watched a lot of Seahawks, and then you just see it in like the PFF grades and the ESPN offensive line metrics. Their offensive line stunk, and it did no favors for Ken Walker. But I'm just, this whole strategy of trying to get an 80-yard touchdown on every play, even when you're at the 30, like it's driving me crazy. He has so many negative runs or 0-yard runs, and I'm sorry, I just don't think the production's been good enough the last 2 years. All right, so difference of opinion there on Ken Walker. Ladd McConkey in round 4.
Loved it.
So that was I mentioned JSN. Those were the two guys I considered in terms of just punting running back altogether. And again, starting spots are starting spots, whether you're talking about, I got to fill 2 running back spots or my 3rd receiver or my flex spot, they all count the same. So to me, that's the type of player that if you want to completely punt on running back, would have been a great option. But both those receivers.
And as of now, we have no idea. I mean, maybe we can come up with an idea of what the running back landscape will be on draft day come August. In this draft, man, like it just felt like you were grasping at straws. There was going to come a point where you're grasping at straws at running back. And some might say that, like, as soon as Kamara went off the board, that was the first straw being grasped at.
I didn't feel that way because I
no.
still feel like Pacheco was great value and
Sure,
Mixon.
for sure. And then, of course, you're like crazy about Joe Mixon. But
No,
once
crazy about him. He went in the first pick of round 5 and 49th overall.
You're so crazy about him that you passed on him 4 times. So I'm thinking that once the dance card is full at running back and we have a better idea of who the Chuba Hubbards and Rico Dowdles and Chase Browns of 2025 will be, that's when I'll be much more in line with, just take best player available early on. And McConkey absolutely is one of those guys who should be a top 40. He should honestly probably be closer to a top 30 pick if things stay the way they are in LA.
All right, so let's go for a little faster here. We'll just finish up, then we'll talk about our teams and other things. Where I want to talk about when do the reaches start happening at running back because it still feels pretty good for the most part. JSN, third pick of round 4.
Are we grading picks?
Yeah, just is it good in round 4?
Yep,
it's awesome in round 4.
Again,
whoever took that guy, no, that'll stop.
Unless the coordinator comes in and just changes everything.
Right, but DK Metcalf is a cap casualty candidate, and the one guy we know for sure who's going to be around, and the guy who stepped up is Jay.
Here we go. We're going faster. All right, here we go. Josh Allen.
Great
See,
value.
when Josh Allen was born,
all right, Zay Flowers.
A little too soon.
I agree.
Isaiah Pacheco.
Good value.
Just right, if not too late. Probably should have gone a little sooner.
I mean, I don't really see why he should. What's different about Pacheco this year? There's no reason why he couldn't be. He could be.
The Chiefs do what the Seahawks might do?
Oh, and not with that Kareem Hunt. Come on.
No, they get a different bum.
Maybe. I just could see Pacheco ending up in the second round if the circumstances are right. If he's like the clear cut guy.
I don't think Hunt even got drafted in our mock.
Marvin Harrison Jr.
It's not a bad flyer as a third receiver for this team. And he was, I think it's wide receiver 20 or 21 off the board. There's still too much upside to ignore, despite the fact that he had a bad rookie season. Like, you shouldn't write him off because he didn't have a Neighbors or Thomas type year. Like, I don't mind it here.
I definitely think it's a good call. It is wide receiver 20. I think we're starting to see a change at the position. Like, you have Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, T. Higgins. Then you have Rashee Rice, Ladd McConkey, JSN, somewhat question marks, but then you get to Zay Flowers, Marvin Harrison Jr. Our next pick is Jamison Williams. The wide receiver position is changing here as we get to wide receiver 20.
You mean we're dropping off a tier?
I think so. Yeah,
I agree.
So, and you're getting to the point where the order could just be anything.
Yep.
Right. I mean, it's personal preference.
Yeah. They all kind of look the same once you get to this point.
So I'll just read the names and we'll finish up. Jamison Williams, then Sam Laporta, which questionable pick by me. Jordan Addison, George Pickens, Jalen Hurts. That's the top 48 right there. All right, let's go through our teams. We'll just go in order. I had the 4th pick, 3 receivers. So Justin Jefferson and Drake London were my first 2 picks. Chase Brown. I wanted to have a great quarterback and a top tier tight end, not necessarily like tier 1. So I went with Laporta in round 4 and Joe Burrow in round 5. I'll just give you my starting lineup.
Okay.
Burrow at quarterback, Laporta at tight end, Chase Brown and Aaron Jones, who was my 7th round pick at running back, Jefferson, London, DK Metcalf. My flex right now is Jalen McMillan.
Why?
If Godwin's back, I don't know if I like the McMillan.
I don't think Godwin will be back.
Okay, well then I like it. Jalen McMillan at flex. Jerome Ford, also an option at flex. And then Romeo Doubs. I mean, Romeo Doubs is he's a flex. He's a 3-receiver league flex. I drafted Zach Moss and Audric Estime. I drafted Caleb Williams and Adam Thielen. So Burrow, Laporta, Chase Brown, Aaron Jones, Jefferson, Drake London, DK Metcalf, Jalen McMillan at flex. I think it's good. And maybe I'd change the Laporta pick. But other than that, I like the fact that I have Joe Burrow in round 5. That was maybe my favorite pick. All right. Jamie, Dave, you are up with team 10.
Quarterback was Patrick Mahomes, who I got in round 7. I didn't really mean to pass on Josh Allen when I took Jackson Smith and Jigba. We had a couple of moments in our draft where Josh Allen was auto-picked, and then someone says, no, I need more time on the clock. Let me have somebody else. If I had known that Josh Allen was available with my pick in early round 4, I would have taken him. But I'm kind of happy with Mahomes in round 7. I think he'll have a better year this coming year than what we just saw last year, because his receiving core will not only be faster, but healthier, certainly more experience in the case of Xavier Worthy. And who knows with that running game. So I'm pretty happy with Mahomes as my quarterback. My running backs were Alvin Kamara in round 3, Tyrone Tracy in round 5. You don't care about my bench right now, so I won't get into it, but I've got some decent running backs on the bench. Wide receivers, Puka, BTJ, JSN, and I took Jalen Waddle. And then that was in the wake of Tyreek Hill saying, I want out. And it was before we had heard from the Dolphins brass about Tyreek Hill. But if Tyreek Hill is traded, Jalen Waddle is not going to be a round 4 pick. He'll move up quite a bit because he'll be the guy in line.
Round six.
Oh, is that where I got him? Round 6? Round 4, round 6. Who knows the difference?
Yeah, and then John.
But he's my 4th receiver. And then I took Jonnu later. So a couple of Dolphins pass catchers. Fingers crossed that Tua is fine. But I really like the way that this team came out. Yeah,
I love your team. Because even if Mahomes isn't great, I mean, if he's just fine.
Well, so he can be better than he was this past year. He barely averaged 20 points per game and 6 points. He can be better than that, but maybe not anywhere close to 28 plus is what you're hoping for from Lamar, or Daniels, or Josh Allen. But I mean, I'm getting him 4 rounds later. I'm very happy with that.
His last 2 games were amazing.
All right, Jamie, you are up.
Yeah, Kyler's my quarterback. I got him in round 11. My running backs as of now would be Ken Walker and Travis Etienne, which I thought was pretty good value in round 8, just with the hope of a new coaching staff getting him back on track. He was one of the biggest busts, but still round 8 is pretty good value for him. My receivers are probably the best in the league with Neighbors, Collins, Rashee Rice, Chris Godwin would be the flex right now. If not him, it'd be Ricky Pearsall, who's got so much breakout potential. So love that group. And then to get George Kittle in round 6, who points per game was the number 1 tight end. He may have a little bit of a drop off. I have a very 49ers heavy team, by the way. Could have a little bit of a drop off, but I still think he'll be among the top 5 tight ends, which he has been the majority of his career. And then, just going hero RB, you got to take some shots. So I have both backup 49ers running backs as of now with Isaac Orendo and Jordan Mason and Trey Benson, who's going to be backing up a 30-year-old James Conner. So I like the upside of those guys very much.
I never get mad during mock drafts. In fact, I make fun of Scott Fish for getting mad during mock drafts that he's in. I was fuming when Jamie took Jordan Mason. I was really upset. I really wanted Jordan Mason in round 12.
Yeah.
So, Adam, this is when you can look at me and say, you could have taken him with any of your first 11 picks. I sure should have. I should have.
Well, that's our mock draft. There'll be a write-up on. When do you think the article will be up?
Story's done. Just got to publish it.
Okay, cool. So
end of the day today.
Shortly. In the meantime, we got some fantasy cops issues. Well, we got one right now to discuss. You ready for the fantasy cops? Put on your police caps.
It's not even a week into, well, I guess it is a week into 2025, and we have a fantasy cops issue already?
Well, it's about payouts. So,
oh, wow, this is serious.
I feel like I read this. I feel like I read this, but I emailed him. I was like, did I read this? He said no. So here we go. Adam from the best place to live during these cold winter months, which he says is Phoenix, Arizona. Okay. Adam from Phoenix.
First off, hopefully everybody's okay in California.
Oh, yeah. Texting with my friend right now. He's about to evacuate his house.
Oh, gosh.
So, yes. Hopefully everyone is okay. It's horrible. I just capped off my greatest fantasy season in 12 years. I won 3 of 4 leagues. T. Higgins in all 3 thanks to your show. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was excited to receive my payout after finally winning an old work league in year 4. I was surprised and disappointed to hear from the commissioner shortly after winning that this year did not have dues. So there would therefore be a free year and we could go back to dues next year.
No way.
No one was really active on the message board, but in no way was it a dead league. Everyone set rosters and played it out. Here's the background. The league has been going on for 4 years with a historic buy-in of $30. Typically, dues were collected ahead of time, but in many cases, players paid after the season if they forgot. This year, a message went out a week before the season asking everyone if they wanted to do the league again, and all 12 players did. Dues were not discussed, so I assumed they remained the same. Again, no one ever mentioned a free year or any changes at all. In no way is this about the money, but rather the principle. I gladly paid my dues the previous 3 years and have only finished second at best over that time. What say you, fantasy cops? Did it need to be discussed ahead of time, or should precedent have been honored? I feel bad asking for a vote at this point as the winner. I will take Heath's preemptive advice and graciously quit the league, retiring on top either way. But I'd love to hear your thoughts and get some peace of mind.
I never hear Heath say anything about doing it graciously. Yeah, this dude's out of luck. There's no way you can retroactively ask for league dues after the league already happened.
I don't think he's out of line at all. I mean, if nothing was ever discussed, and for years it's been the same buy-in, how could the commissioner all of a sudden say, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're doing it for free"?
Why didn't the commissioner collect fees at any point or bring up fees at any point?
Because it's only $30, and he said there's a history of people.
And there's a history of they've never brought it up before.
Well, they have.
Did the commissioner bring it up at any point in July or August?
But did he also bring it up that they're not playing for anything?
No. He just never brought it up at all. It had been brought up in the past. People had paid dues, but also, if people had forgot, they paid after. So he probably just felt like, oh, nobody had paid yet. Whatever, we'll pay. I don't know. I think your league should probably give you like $10 per person.
I think they should give him. I mean, look, I'm never going to tell anybody what to do with their money. This is such a small buy-in. Like, do you really want to ruin the league or the experience of the guy who finally won it and for $30 each?
How about 20? Can we discount it?
No, I mean, if that's what it was, that's what it should be. Unless the guy who's running the league said, by the way, this year we're not playing for anything. Do you guys still want to do it?
He might as well have said that, though, because he didn't talk about the buy-in at any point. At any point. Jamie, when you send out information about the leagues starting, every year you mention what the buy-in is. I do it with the leagues that I commish. What
if Jamie didn't? What if he was setting up the FFT league, which I think has a $50 buy-in, and he didn't mention it this year?
Well, it has no buy-in. It's a membership fee. Go ahead.
What if he didn't mention it this year? Would you just assume it's gone, or would you just assume that it's 50?
I would probably reach out to him and say, hey, are you sure there isn't a buy-in for this league? Or did the buy-in change for this league? Someone should have brought it up at some point. You're telling me that no one brought it up, including the winner of the league, at any point during the year? It sucks for him. It sucks to win a league and not get anything for it, unless it's a charitable league, in which case you can feel good about yourself. But it sucks. But I think that the commissioner is probably in the right here.
Okay. No, the commissioner's not. The commissioner messed up.
The commissioner might not be in the right. That might be the wrong thing to say. But the commissioner is appropriate in saying that there is no prize.
Is it winner take all?
I don't know, but let me just give this final.
It might as well be with $0 up for grabs.
No, but I mean, did the person who finished second also think that he's getting something from this too?
That's a good question. All right, let me give one final thought, Adam, from one Adam to another. And you certainly live in a better place than I do in these cold winter months. Play this conversation for your league, because we have Dave who's saying no payout, me who's saying maybe somewhere in between, and Jamie who's saying full payout. Play this conversation for your league. See what they think. At the very least, they should take you out for dinner or something. Like you
shouldn't have to pay dues next year at the minimum.
Yeah, there should be something for you. All right, I have a couple of dynasty questions here. This is from Kelly. Kelly has Jamar Chase and is looking to rebuild. I'm being offered Marvin Harrison Jr. and the number 1 pick this year and a 2027 first for Jamar Chase and pick 2.5 this year. Would you do it? It's 1 QB.
Yeah.
So you're getting basically 3 first-round picks, last year's first and 2 first upcoming for Jamar Chase. I think that's fair.
Yes.
Yeah, do it.
I especially like that the first is in 2027. So the team that you're trading with might be done with their championship run by then. So that first-round pick could be an early first-round pick.
And Anton says, Anton, this is the guy from No Country for Old Men is how he signed it. How much do the Giants retaining Brian Daboll impact Tyrone Tracy's dynasty value? Is he a high or a low-end RB2 in 2025?
We have to see what they do, because if it's him and Singletary again, then I love it for Tracy. If it's, hey, our run game was good, but it could be better, then it could be awful for him. So they have to find the quarterback. That's the most important thing. I think fixing the middle of the offensive line has got to be huge too, along with clearly the tackle staying healthy. But there's so much to love about the workload that they gave him in his rookie campaign and what he did on a crappy team.
There is no financial benefit to the Giants cutting Devin Singletary, and Tyrone Tracy's on a rookie deal. I would think that these are the top 2 running backs in New York next year. Very good for Tracy. And it's very good that Dable's there.
It's one of the least of their problems. They got a lot of them.
Agreed.
They did. That's very well said. All right. Thanks, everybody. I am going to finish watching the movie Point Break, which I think is pretty bad. But I'll have a full review for you on our next show. Never seen it before. Okay. But we got
Adam Azer's off-season movie reviews.
Oh, yeah. I love the off season. Okay. Have a good day. Talk to you tomorrow on FFT.